make it to you. Not everyone wants the best for you. Who try to take the dream inside you, they see they're flat out jealous and envy all the things you will be. Yeah, just hold your head up, man, and keep on moving on. If I would've never struggled, then I wouldn't have this song. But don't get me wrong, no need to stack up your strife. You gotta watch the ones who you let speak straight into your life. Cause the artists, they will sing you all their fancy little songs with the funny little beats and all the catchy sing-alongs. But the messages they give are not the kind you should be fed. It's a recipe of lies they try to get stuck in your head. Man, I see some rappers sold their souls, I won't be selling mine. No need to find a source when you're eating from the vine. You thought that I was done, but now I'm leaving you behind. Wouldn't say I deserve it, but I'm here to get what's mine. Live free, dream big, and see that the world is yours. The world is yours. With all you have to give. Cause the world is yours. The world is yours. Live good, live right, no fear tonight. The world is yours. The world is yours. And just stay true, fight on, stay you. The world is yours. The world is yours. Look up, live free, dream big, and see that the world is yours. The world is yours. Give all you have to give. Cause the world is yours. The world is yours.
Happy Wednesday! I hope all of you are having a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday. I already see in the chat, we're already starting with the food. Mackenzie has Waffle Wednesday. Yeah, Miss Crow's like, I'm in. Yeah, I know. Every day we have some type of food situation going on, and it's always fun because I guess folks are hungry because it's around lunchtime when I go live every day. Oh my goodness, it's such a beautiful day outside. You have to, after you get done with all your schoolwork, you have to like go outside and enjoy today. It's just one of these days that you just need to be thankful you're alive because, man, it's like 70 degrees. There's hardly any humidity, a little breeze in the air. So go outside maybe with your family for a walk, maybe before or after dinner this evening. I hope all of you are having a great day. It's Read Aloud Wednesday, so I'm excited about our Read Aloud. Our Read Aloud is brought to you today courtesy of Destiny and Faith. They recommended this book that I'm going to read to you. Thank you, Mr. Falker, and I'm going to read this to you today. And it's really, I'm glad you recommended this last week, ladies, because it's an appropriate book to read for this week because it's about the author's teacher. It's about the author. It's about a lot of stuff, but the teacher is the centerpiece. And this week is Teacher Appreciation Week, and so thank you all the teachers who are online right now. Thank you all the teachers who may watch this later. We are so happy that you continue to do what you do, which is solve problems and help kids, and you've been doing that a lot over the course of these last couple of months. And kids, I've given you assignments to thank your teacher, so make sure you do that. I've got several folks who've sent messages to me letting me know that they have sent their teacher a thank you note, or they have written them one that they're going to send them later. So definitely let your teachers know how much you appreciate them this week, and be specific. Don't just say thank you for being my teacher. Tell them why you enjoy having them as your teacher. All right, let's look at our house points, house point totals. We have Eurisi is still in first place with 7,480 points. Dynan is in second with 6,569 points. Funda is in third with 6,264 points. And Amistad is in fourth with 5,679 points. It's still a close race, everyone. I know you're like, well, Eurisi's way out in front. Well, there are a lot of points that have not come in yet. Teachers are collecting them, and they're going to send them to me later. And so there are hundreds and thousands of more points that are out there that are being collected every single day by teachers. So keep working hard, keep doing your homework assignments. I know some teachers are giving kids, when you have a Zoom with your teacher, you're getting points for being on Zoom and turning in different assignments and different things that they do. So keep working hard to earn all your house points, and we'll see who our champion is at the end of the year. So today I am going to read you this book, Thank You, Mr. Falker, by one of my favorite authors, Patricia Polacco. She is like one of the best. So if you haven't read any of her books before, check them out. She just does a great job. She's one of my favorite kid authors, and this is one of my favorite books, and I want to thank Faith and Destiny again for sending this in, because they asked me to read this last week, and so that's why I'm doing it. All right, let's get started. Thanks, everyone. I'm getting notes that my mic was turned off, so let's start this again, okay? I got excited. I was reading one of my favorite books, okay? All right. So, yeah, I've got it, everybody. The mic is off. You're on a little bit of a delay, so you're going to catch up here in just a second. So, let's start over. The beauty of going live on YouTube. Mr. Crader can still make mistakes. All right, Patricia Polacco, thank you, Mr. Falker. All right, here we go. Let's try this again. The grandpa held the jar of honey so that all the family could see, then dipped a ladle into it and drizzled honey on the cover of a small book. The little girl had just turned 5. "Stand up, little one," he cooed. "I did this for your mother, your uncles, your older brother, and now you." Then he handed the book to her. "Taste!" She dipped her finger into the honey and put it into her mouth. "What is that taste?" the grandma asked. The little girl answered, "Sweet." Then all the family said in a single voice, "Yes, and so is knowledge. But knowledge is like the bee that made that sweet honey. You have to chase it through the pages of a book." The little girl knew that the promise to read was at last hers. Soon she was going to learn to read. Tricia, the littlest girl in the family, grew up loving books. Her school teacher mother read to her every night. Her red-headed brother brought his books home from school and shared them. And whenever she visited the family farm, her grandfather or grandmother read to her by the stone fireplace. When she turned 5 and went to kindergarten, most of all, she hoped to read. Each day she saw the kids in the first grade across the hall reading. And before the year was over, some of the kids in her own class began to read. Not Tricia. Still, she loved being at school because she could draw. The other kids would crowd around her and watch her do her magic with the crayons. "In first grade, you'll learn to read," her brother said. In first grade, Tricia sat in a circle with the other kids. They were all holding Our Neighborhood, their first reader, sounding out letters and words. They said, "Ba, ah, oi, boy," and "la, look." The teacher smiled at them when they put all the sounds together and got a word right. But when Trisha looked at a page, all she saw was wiggling shapes. And when she tried to sound out words, the other kids laughed at her. "Trisha, what are you looking at in the book?" they'd say. "I'm reading," she'd say back to them. But her teacher would move on to the next person. Always when it was her turn to read, her teacher had to help her with every single word. And while the other kids moved up into the second reader and third reader, she stayed alone in our neighborhood. Trisha began to feel different. She began to feel dumb. The harder words got for the little girl, the more and more time she spent drawing. How she loved to draw, or just sitting and dreaming, or when she could, going for walks with her grandmother. One summer day, she and her grandma were walking together in the small woods behind their farm. It was twilight. The air was sweet and warm. Fireflies were just coming up from the grasses. As they walked, Trisha said, "Grandma, do you think I'm different?" "Of course," her grandma answered. "To be different is the miracle of life. You see all those little fireflies? Every one is different." "Do you think I'm smart?" Trisha didn't feel smart. Her grandma hugged her. "You are the smartest, quickest, dearest little thing ever." Right then, the little girl felt safe in her grandma's arms. Reading didn't matter so much. Trisha's grandma used to say that the stars were holes in the sky. They were the light of heaven coming from the other side. And she used to say that someday she would be on the other side, where the light comes from. One evening they lay on the grass together and counted the lights from heaven. "You know," her grandma said, "all of us will go there someday. Hang on to the grass, or you'll lift right off the ground, and there you'll be." They laughed and both hung onto the grass. But it was not long after that night that her grandma must have let go of the grass, because she went to where the lights were on the other side. And not long after that, Trisha's grandpa let go of the grass too. School seemed harder and harder now. Reading was just plain torture. When Sue Ellen read her page or Tommy Bob read his page, they read so easily that Trisha would watch the top of their heads to see if something was happening to their heads and that wasn't happening to hers. And numbers were the hardest thing of all to read. She never added anything right. "Line the numbers up before you add them," the teacher would say. But when Trisha tried, the numbers looked like a stack of blocks, wobbly and ready to fall. She just knew she was dumb. Then one day, her mother announced that she'd gotten a teaching job in California, a long way from the family farm in Michigan. Even though her grandma and grandpa were gone, the little girl didn't want to move. Maybe, though, the teachers and kids in her new school wouldn't know how dumb she was. She and her mother and brother moved across the country in a two-tone 1949 Plymouth. It took 5 days. But at the new school, it was the same. When she tried to read, she stumbled over words. The cat ran. She was reading like a baby in the 3rd grade. And when her teacher read along with them and called on Trisha for an answer, she gave the wrong answer every time. "Hey, dummy," a boy called out to her on the playground. "How come you're so dumb?" Other kids stood near him and they laughed. Trisha could feel the tears burning in her eyes. How she longed to go back to her grandparents' farm in Michigan. Now Trisha wanted to go to school less and less. "I have a sore throat," she'd say to her mother, or "I have a stomach ache." She dreamed more and more and drew more and more, and she hated school. Then when Trisha started 5th grade, the school was all abuzz. There was a new teacher. He was tall and elegant. Everybody loved her striped coat. Everybody loved his striped coat and slick gray pants. He wore the neatest clothes. All the usual teachers' pets gathered around him. Stevie Joe and Alice Marie, Davy and Michael Lee. But right from the start, It didn't seem to matter to Mr. Falker which kids were the cutest, or the smartest, or the best at anything. Mr. Falker would stand behind Tricia whenever she was drawing and whisper, "This is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Do you know how talented you are?" When he said this, even the kids who teased her would turn around in their seats and look at her drawings, but they still laughed whenever she gave a wrong answer. Then, one day, she had to stand up and read, which she hated. She was stumbling through a page in Charlotte's Web, and the page was going all fuzzy when the kids began to laugh out loud. Mr. Falker, in his plaid jacket and his butterfly tie, said, "Stop! Are all of you so perfect that you can look at another person and find fault with her?" That was the last day anyone laughed out loud or made fun of her, all except Eric. He had sat behind Tricia for 2 whole years, but he seemed almost to hate her. Tricia didn't know why. He waited by the door of the classroom for her and pulled her hair. He waited for her on the playground, leaned in her face and called her Toad. Tricia was afraid to turn any corner for fear Eric would be there. She felt completely alone. The only time she was really happy was when she was around Mr. Falker. He let her erase the blackboards. Only the best students got to do that. He patted her on the back whenever she got something right, and he looked hard and mean at any kid who teased her. But the nicer Mr. Falker was to Tricia, the worse Eric treated her. He got all the other kids to wait for her on the playground, or in the cafeteria, or even in the bathroom, and to jump out and call her stupid or ugly. And Tricia began to believe them. She discovered that if she asked to go to the bathroom just before recess, she could hide under the inside stairwell during the free time and not have to go outside at all. In that dark place, she felt completely safe. But one day at recess, Eric followed her to her secret hiding place. "Have you become a mole?" he laughed, and he pulled her out into the hall and danced around her. "Dumbbell, dumbbell, maggoty old dumbbell." Tricia buried her head in her arms and curled up in a ball. Suddenly she heard footsteps. It was Mr. Falker. He marched Eric down to the office. When he came back, he told Tricia, "I don't think you'll have to worry about that boy again," he said softly. "What was he teasing you about, little one?" "I don't know," Tricia shrugged. Tricia was sure Mr. Falker believed that she could read. She had learned to memorize what the kid next to her was reading, or she would wait for Mr. Falker to help her with a sentence. Then she'd say the same thing that he did. "Good," he would say. Then one day, Mr. Falker asked her to stay after school and help wash the blackboards. He put on music and brought out little sandwiches as they worked and talked. All at once he said, "Let's play a game. I'll shout out letters. You write them on the board with the wet sponge as quickly as you can." "A," he shouted. She wiped a watery A. "8," he shouted. She made a watery 8. 14, 3, D, M, Q, he shouted out. He shouted out many, many letters and numbers. Then he walked up behind her, and together they looked at the board. It was a watery mess. Tricia knew that none of the letters or numbers looked like they should. She threw the sponge down and tried to run. But Mr. Falker caught her arm and sank to his knees in front of her. "You poor baby," he said. "You think you're dumb, don't you? How awful for you to be so lonely and afraid." She sobbed. "But little one, don't you understand? You don't see letters or numbers the way other people do, and you've gotten through school all this time and fooled many, many good teachers." He smiled at her. That took cunning and smartness and such bravery. Then he stood up and finished washing the board. We're going to change all that, girl. You're going to read. I promise you that. Now, almost every day after school, she met with Mr. Falker and Miss Plessy, a reading teacher. They did a lot of things she didn't even understand. At first, she made circles in sand and then big sponge circles on the blackboard, going from left to right, left to right. Another day, they flicked letters on a screen and Tricia shouted them out loud. Still other days, she worked with wooden blocks and built words. Letters, letters, letters. Words, words, words. Always sounding them out, and that felt good. But though she'd read words, she hadn't read a whole sentence, and deep down, she still felt dumb. And then one spring day, had it been 3 months or 4 months since they had started, Mr. Falker put a book in front of her. She'd never seen it before. He picked a paragraph in the middle of a page and pointed at it. Almost as if it were magic, or as if light poured into her brain, the words and sentences started to take shape on the page as they never had before. She marched them off to... Slowly she read a sentence, then another, and another, and finally she'd read a paragraph, and she understood the whole thing. She didn't notice that Mr. Falker and Miss Plessy had tears in their eyes. That night, Tricia ran home without stopping to catch her breath. She bounded up the front steps, threw open her front door, and ran through the dining room to the kitchen. She climbed up on the cupboard and grabbed a jar of honey. Then she went into the living room and found the book on a shelf, the very book that her grandpa had shown her so many years ago. She spooned honey on the cover and tasted the sweetness and said to herself, "The honey is sweet, and so is knowledge. But knowledge is like the bee who made the honey. It has to be chased through the pages of a book." Then she held the book, honey and all, close to her chest. She could feel tears roll down her cheeks, but they weren't tears of sadness. She was happy, so very happy. The rest of the year became an odyssey of discovery and adventure for the little girl. She learned to love school. I know, because that little girl was me, Patricia Polacco. I saw Mr. Falker again some 30 years later at a wedding. I walked up to him and introduced myself. At first he had difficulty placing me. Then I told him who I was and how he had changed my life so many years ago. He hugged me and asked me what I did for a living. "Why, Mr. Falker?" I answered. "I make books for children." "Thank you, Mr. Falker. Thank you." All right, I hope you enjoyed that book as much as I did. That's a great book. Thank you so much, Destiny and Faith, for recommending that. That was the perfect book for this week. Remember, it's Teacher Appreciation Week, and that story is about a wonderful, wonderful teacher that helped Patricia Polacco out when she needed some help. I want to show you one. I know the pictures may be hard to see on the screen, but I want to go back to one picture on the screen that I went by fairly quickly. I want to talk about it for just a second. So bear with me here as I go backwards. Oops. It is, let's see, right here. If you look at the background, I know it's kind of hard to see, but up here at the top on the chalkboard, it says, "All children have gifts. Some open them at different times." So I want you to think about that for a second and write in the chat what you think that means. All children have gifts. Some open them at different times. What do you think that means in the chat? I'm going to give you just a second to write your thoughts about that. All children have gifts. Some open them at different times. What does that mean? And I'm going to, as soon as you answer that, I'll pull your answer onto the screen so everyone can read it. I have my thoughts about that, and I'll share those with you in just a second, but before I share them, I want to hear what your thoughts are. So, all children have gifts. Some open them at different times. What does that mean to you? And so in the chat, let's see, we've got, looks like Eric and Mackenzie have been very active in the chat here with a lot of stuff. I know Eric's been active because he's one of the characters in the book, right? Not this Eric, but his name was mentioned. So William, he says they might unleash their inner talent later in life, maybe as adults. I like that. That's good, William. That's a good one. Let's see. Faith and Destiny say not everyone has the same talent, and they all find it out at different times. I like that. That's very good. Austin says that means one person may learn to read or etc. at different times. That's exactly right. Mackenzie says everyone has gifts. It just takes a while to unlock them. That is very, very good. Yes, I like it. Let's see, Miss Crow. I'm going to delete a couple of these off of here so I can put some more up. Miss Crow says, it reminds me of a quote in a beautiful drawing of a flower that Noemi from Miss Whittington's class gave me. Minds are like flowers. They open when they are ready. Oh, that's awesome, Miss Crow. I really like that. I hope you, hang that up and frame that for all to see, because that's wonderful. Very, very good. And that may be a good way to end it. And I agree with Miss Crow. Some flowers, and I'll pull this screen back up. Some flowers take a long time to open and bloom, and others, bloom really quick. Like I have some tulips that grow here, like right after, toward the end of winter, the beginning of spring, they pop up, and they're like the very first flowers that pop up. But then I have some other flowers like lilies that I have out here that take a little longer, and some of them are just now starting to bloom. And so in your life, that's going to be the case. We're all different. We all have, different unique abilities, and sometimes it takes us a little longer to learn certain things. So just because you're awesome at math, that the next person who's sitting right beside you, it may take them a little bit longer to get it. Or reading, like in this example, or art, or anything. And that's the great thing about like what her grandparents taught her at the very beginning of the book. They taught her that she was special and unique. Her grandmother told her that, and it's great to be different. We all don't want to be the same. You don't want to be clones of each other. I mean, I know in 5th grade, Evan and Emery are twins, but they're not exactly like each other. And the world would not be fun if we were all exactly alike. So you need to appreciate being different. You need to, all of us have things that we're interested in, and you may be the only one in the room that's interested in something, and that's okay, because that's something that you like and you enjoy. So don't ever forget that. That's very important for you to always remember that, because there may become, a time in your life where you encounter kids like Trish encountered in the book, and they're making fun of you because of your differences, and it's easy for me to say don't let it bother you, because it probably will bother you, but you need to not let it bother you in a way that you stop doing whatever it is that you're interested in. Well, I hope all of you had a wonderful time with that book. I did. Thank you, Faith and Destiny. I got Miss Wright recommended the book that we're going to read next week, and I'm going to keep it a secret for right now. So I have next week's book already. So your homework assignment today has nothing to do with giving me a book you'd like me to read. Your homework assignment for today is it's Teacher Appreciation Week. Write your teacher a special note, thanking him or her for being your teacher. If you do that, email me and let me know, and be specific when you're writing your note. Like I said at the very beginning, don't just say, thank you for being my teacher. Tell them why. Be specific. Let your teacher know why you like him or you like her so much. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's Read Aloud Wednesday. Tomorrow is Trivia Thursday, and we're going to go back to our old style of trivia tomorrow, where we have teams competing for tons and tons of house points. So I hope all of you have a great rest of the day. Get outside later and enjoy some fresh air and sunshine if you can with your family, and stay safe. I'll see you here at 1 o'clock tomorrow. We're going to play Thursday trivia, and I'll stay here in the chat while the music plays and answer any questions that you may have. Have a great rest of your day. See ya. Bye-bye.
Look up, live free, dream big, and see the world is yours. The world is yours. Give all you have to give. The world is yours. The world is yours. I tried to break free, you tried to keep me bound. I tried to live right, you tried to keep me down. But now I'm going up, I'm moving high then. Anywhere that I've been before, I'm flying, man. It's kinda crazy, like my feet are lifting off the ground. I'm touching heaven with my hands, now to get the sound. But though I'm flying, my head is still level, and I won't be bound down to hear the whispers of the devil. Now the future is here, and it looks real bright, and it can be yours too, if you set your path right. I know life can be hard, but you were put here to win. Just refuse to quit when you're down and get back up again. Man, I used to write my music from my tiny bedroom, and though I dreamt of being free, I felt trapped like in a tomb. And even though the times are dark and I can barely even see through all the tears, I sit and pen, weave out my destiny. But now the days are gone where I would listen to the critics who counted me out before they ran the proper analytics. I'm here to stay, just like a necklace waiting to be pearled, and I'm throwing up the chorus as I'm singing with the world. Live free, dream big, and see that the world is yours. The world is yours. Give all you have to give. 'Cause the world is yours. The world is yours. You should be careful who you listen to, who watch all of the things you do. I hate to break it to you, not everyone wants the best for you. Who try to take the dream inside you, they see they're flat out jealous and envy all the things you will be. Yeah, just hold your head up, man, and keep on moving on. If I would've never struggled, then I wouldn't have this song. But don't get me wrong, no need to stack up your strife. You gotta watch the ones who you let speak straight into your life. 'Cause the artists, they will sing you all their fancy little songs with the funny little beats and all the catchy sing-alongs. But the messages they give are not the kind you should be fed. It's a recipe of lies they try to get stuck in your head. Man, I see some rappers sold their souls, I won't be selling mine. No need to find a source when you're eating from the vine. You thought that I was done, but now I'm leaving you behind. Wouldn't say I deserve it, but I'm here to get what's mine.